thanks everyone for coming for day 2 of the All About Ebikes event. So today is our Bikes Are Better panel. So we have a great panel lined up. My name's Kaitlin. I'm the Director of Sustainability at the London Environmental Network. So we worked with the City of London and London Cycle Link to organize the event this weekend. And I will pass it to Molly Miksa, who's the Executive Director of London Cycle Link, and she'll also be the moderator for today's panel. So.
Thank you, Kaitlin. My name's Molly Miksa. I'm the Executive Director at London Cycle Link. We do cycling events and advocacy, education, and run a bicycle co-op in London, Ontario. And I'm happy to be facilitating this panel, and I'll start by introducing our esteemed panelists. At the far end is Colin Evans and pals.
Yes, this is Sloan and Torin.
Sloan and Torin. Colin and his wife Holly live in Old North with their daughters Blakely, Leighton, Thorin, and Sloan, who are all here. Torin, who are all here with us today, may have contributions. And their new family addition, their puppy Bloom, I understand. Bloom is not here with us.
Bloom stayed at home in the crate. It's too hot for her.
All right, fair enough. They made their first foray into cycle commuting in 2020 when they moved to London from their farm north of the city. Since that time, cycling has played an increasingly pivotal role in their life. And in 2022, they bought their Urban Arrow, which has entirely transformed the way they live and their perspective on how we all live. In addition to this, Colin is a resident physician with Western Emergency Medicine, where he serves as the founder and director of the Western Community for Active Transportation, or WORCAT, an organization dedicated to encouraging and supporting car-free commuting while actively engaging city council and staff, as well as hospital decision makers, in an effort to make active transportation a safe and reliable alternative to car dependence. Thank you, Colin, and welcome. Beside him, we have Ben Durham. Ben is a digital content creator and marketer who focuses on biking, infrastructure, and urban planning. He's based in London, Ontario, and uses his platform to advocate for safer bicycle infrastructure and sustainable transportation solutions. He's known for his hands-on approach to biking and infrastructure issues, often attending city council meetings and engaging directly with local government decisions that affect cyclists. Ben emphasizes the importance of incremental improvements on infrastructure and the need for practical, immediate solutions over perfect long-term plans. One of the Band-Aid solutions to London sprawl is e-bikes. He's always been riding bicycles to get places, but his e-bike journey started in 2018 with a DIY e-bike. We might get into that story later. Then he learned about the amazingness of Dutch-styled upright step-through bicycles. Now, tens of thousands of kilometers later, he's here with us today, Ben Durham. And beside Ben is Natalia Danczak. Did I say that right, Natalia? Happy to have Natalia here. Natalia is a product designer with expertise in graphic design, UX design, branding, and accessibility. She is dedicated to creating inclusive communities for all ages and abilities with a focus on micromobility. She loves to ride her e-bike anywhere in the city where street speeds are slow and safe, but tolerates the scattered infrastructure throughout London to do her everyday errands like groceries, Home Depot runs, and attending council meetings by e-bike. And finally, next to me, delighted to have Ron Gill with us today. Ron is a 91-year-old e-bike rider. He's been riding an e-bike for the last year and is part of a recreational cycling club that meets once a week for coffee and a ride. Prior to that, Ron rode a conventional bike way back in his 60s. Ron and his wife used to go bike camping with their dog. Ron is also past president of the Thames Valley Trails Association. So thank you and welcome, everyone. I'll start off and we can just kind of go down the line and maybe just talk a little bit about how you incorporate e-bikes or e-cargo bikes into your lives. Colin, do you want to start?
Yeah, so we got our Arrow in 2022, and it sort of came about as a bit of a paradigm shift for us. Before that, we I mean, previously we'd been 2 pickup truck owners, and then we became pickup and crossover, and then we got rid of our crossover, and then we had the twins, and we had to trade in the truck for an SUV because we thought at that time we were still going to need 4-wheel drive and to be able to pull a trailer and things like that. And then we started reflecting more and more and realized how much time we spent riding our bikes just in town with the Chariot on the back, and how much of an increasing role it had in improving our quality of life. And so then we decided to trade in our SUV for a van, and we'd been looking at hybrids, but then Holly sort of came up with the idea that instead of doing a hybrid van, we could actually trade in the SUV for a less expensive conventional, and go with a electric cargo bike, and that really transformed our entire life. It has a huge impact on how we plan to spend our days, and the real advantage with these guys is that sort of the adventure starts as soon as we leave the house, right? If we ever do have to go to the van, this one in particular gets very angry, right? And so we leave the house and it's sort of exploring right from there. We can get on the Thames Valley Trail right away. We're always checking in to see what the animals are doing and the birds are doing and the insects are doing and things like that. And then we choose where we go based on where we can get to by bike, right? Which is just about everywhere. But some places are easier than others. And we notice there's sort of a nudge towards those types of things. So we spend a lot of time downtown because that's fairly easy for us to get to from our house. And we, the girls spend a ton of time at the downtown library. And we just find overall our life is much more sustainable and sort of well balanced, and we enjoy it a lot.
Great, thank you.
It's also nice for my night shifts. I borrow it for the night shifts.
Yeah, we've seen your bike also decorated for Halloween as a Viking ship and out at different events too.
Yeah, I think we still got a bit of a hangover decoration on our bike from the slow roll this year. We still got all our waves on the side, right? Yeah. And a fishy. Yes, there's a fishy on it.
Good stuff. Ben, how about you?
The question was incorporating.
The question was, how do you incorporate e-bikes or e-cargo bikes into your life? Or how don't you?
That is why I was pondering. I'm like, how don't I? No, but every single chance that I get, this is my fiance Natalia, and she'll have her own story there, but we bike as much as we can. We bike today. It was more difficult, but the e-bike allows for you to temperature regulate. So whether it's in frost biking in the winter or in plus 40 like today, you actually have a lot more flexibility in, hey, how far can I go? Because you can choose how much power you want to use. And in the winter, you have a heater built in, which is your body, and you actually end up overheating. For anyone who's ever tried to bike in anything that is somewhat cold, you start overheating more so than getting cold. So it actually allows you to do that. So it allows me to bike more is the really short answer. But otherwise, we use it for grocery hauls and, getting around the city, going to, council meetings, etc. But I'm trying to think of when we don't. Getting a trailer allows you to really expand how much you can haul as well. Otherwise, just having a front rack, I don't. We might get you one because your bike can handle it. But yeah, you can haul a surprising amount. And if you do more frequent trips to the grocery store, then you don't need to make even those massive hauls like a Costco run. You can just go to your local grocery store and top up here and there. So that's kind of how that works into my life.
And I know, Natalia, you're also integrated in that life and share some of those things, but how do you...
So in 2019, I think you had your e-bike in 2017 or 18. So 2019, Ben helped me DIY an e-bike. So I actually was looking at a video yesterday and we went to Canadian Tire, picked out a bicycle, just like a mountain bike. And we took the battery, the actual battery, and to see if it would fit on the bike. So we kind of rigged it in the store. Took all the tools that were available within the store and just tried to see if it would fit. So for about a year or a year and a half, I had this DIY e-bike, and I was noticing the only thing that I had on the e-bike was the throttle. That was the only electric thing. And the throttle, you just press down the button and you have the motor running. But when in 2021, we changed over. We were like, nope, we don't want these DIY e-bikes anymore. We're going to invest in something that is actually more comfortable. So in 2021, we invested in some e-bikes that were more comfortable, and it was just magic. Like that was my first time experiencing pedal assist and being able to use the pedal assist. As Ben was saying, it just allows you to go further and to a lot of different places even more. So yeah, that's how I incorporate it.
You. And Ron, how do you incorporate your e-bike into your life day to day?
Day to day is not a lot of biking for me day to day. And when the weather's good, I would ride the pedestrian bicycle pathways in the city. And I've pretty much been all around the city on those trails. There's a group I belong to that they allowed me to join them, and that's when I got my e-bike a year ago. It is a fold-up, and I have a normal sedan, so I have to lift it and put it in the trunk. So I needed a fold-up to get it in the trunk. And we ride on a Friday morning, and that's when I'm really have a social life, when I'm out on my e-bike. What I've found for me is seeing the city in a different way. As I often think about at one time when I was in a canoe on the river, you have a totally different view of the city in this way. So for me, it's recreational. It gets me out in the afternoon rather than sitting watching TV. And I enjoy the fact that I'm still able at this age to get out and ride a bike and enjoy the out of doors. I have ridden on a street, Rideout Street. I'm close to Rideout, and was able to ride in to the bicycle cafe where I have a coffee and a cookie and turn around and go back home again. But other than that street, I've yet to venture on other streets. But I've been looking and seeing that there's possibilities for me to get to grocery stores. And the only thing I have to look for there is how do I lock up my bike? So there's ways to go for that venture for me yet.
And we will come back to that question about security and locking a little bit later. But I have a follow-up for you, Ron. Was there a space in between when you had your conventional bike and when you got the e-bike a year ago where you were not feeling comfortable riding?
No, it turned out that from having a regular bike, our life changed so that biking wasn't a thing that we would be doing. And so there was a gap of time before I was introduced to e-biking. And it took a bit of learning, quite a bit of learning for me.
Well, I'm glad you got there. Thanks, everyone. So next question, maybe we'll go in reverse order, if that's all right. We've sort of touched on this already, but how long have you been using your e-bike, and how is, there's some practical questions too, because I know there's a lot of interest in the practicalities. How's the battery life, and how do you deal with charging? How do you work that into your schedule when you're out and about?
You want me to speak on that?
Yeah.
Oh, battery life for the amount of biking I do, it's quite manageable. The distance I ride, I don't have to have a fully charged battery. And charging the battery is quite easy. Take it in the house and, and keep a watch. There's 5 lights on my battery, and as it gets up near the top, I usually stop because you don't, for the amount of biking like that I do, you have enough distance in the battery for the length of kilometers that I bike. It's quite manageable, very manageable.
That's great. So not an issue there. Natalia?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure.
Yeah. How's the battery life on your bike, and how do you work charging it into your schedule?
Battery life, really, really good. I find that we're able to get to places. So we usually bike to Ben's parents' place, and that takes us about 30 minutes. And then once we are there, we have a charger. So Ben's dad, who's sitting right there, he has an electric bicycle. So we use his charger and just swap between the both of us in charging. So we can get a little bit of a top up when we go home. We have gone at times more than 40 minutes and still haven't had any issues. The only time where I've run out of charge was yesterday, because I was just like having a lot of fun on my bicycle, and I forgot to look at the charge. I was like, oh, okay. And then as I was going home, the battery just drained, but I was able to turn. There's different modes on your electric bike. So you can turn it from 1 to, on mine, it's all the way up to 5, but you can also turn it on to 0. So you don't have any pedal assist and you can still pedal home. So that was the only time where I just completely forgot to look at my meter, and I was like, oh, right, I should be paying attention to that, and I didn't. But it's all good anyways. As for, depending on when this will go into the next question, locking up your bike, but I won't go too much into that. But about the battery, sometimes depending on the situation, so let's say your bike is outside in the heat and the sun is beaming on the battery, you want to take the battery inside with you. Or if it's like frigid cold, you also want to take the battery inside with you, because the battery doesn't like it when it's either too hot or too cold. So just being aware of your surroundings and where your bicycle is, that's also key. And I think that's all I have.
Yeah, that's great. And does everyone here have a battery that is removable? I noticed some of the bikes that we're e-testing today, the battery's not meant to be taken on and off. So I think it's a nice thing when they are, but noting that some aren't. And the types of e-bikes that we're talking about today are pedal assist. So you're pedaling. And I think it's important for people to know that you can ride the bike as a conventional bike. If the battery is dead or what have you, you can still ride it to get where you're going. It just is going to take a little more effort. So yeah, thanks, Natalia.
And I was actually going to go off of that because you might be wondering, 40 minutes, 30 minutes, wait, what? It only lasts that long? Not quite. The health of our battery, we have about 10,000 kilometers each on our bikes. And we actually don't do many full charges. Today was one of those days, and in the winter it's those days because we want to make sure we have the power, and that can get us anywhere from 50 to 150 kilometers, depending on how much you're pedaling. And yesterday you were on like number 4 and 5. You're like, nope. So you have a torque sensor which detects how hard you're pedaling, and when you're on 4 and 5, it's just like if you move a fraction of an inch, just so she was definitely using up a lot of power. So
notably, yesterday was 34 degrees Celsius, so it was a good day to not work too hard.
Exactly. No, I'm not even calling out that I would do the same, and I was doing the same because I showed up here yesterday, and we fully charged those, and by the time we get back today, we'll still have probably 60% power because we actually topped it up. So in your case, and yeah, so I just wanted to clarify that the bikes can go further than a 40-minute ride. But otherwise, also, I kind of alluded to this, not fully charging your battery can extend your life hugely. This goes for electric cars too, actually. It's just, and your phones. I won't nerd out entirely on this, but anywhere between 30 and 80%, if you keep your phone, car, or e-bike at that, you can get, let's say your battery's rated for 2,000 cycles before it starts seeing a decrease in longevity or capacity. If you were to, for most of its life, charge it to only 80%, you could get double that, 4,000, 5,000. It's like a dramatic increase. So we have done that, and after 10,000 kilometers, we have not noticed any sort of longevity problems. So we'll probably get another 10,000. At 30 to 40,000 kilometers, we'll probably maybe get a second battery for those trips where it's like, hey, I need the big battery for this trip. Like, but if we already know the distance, like for commuting or going over to my parents or going across the city, it's like, okay, in our heads, you kind of know, and it'll lead into you probably, but you probably kind of know how far you can get on a charge. You know what to do. We don't bring chargers, but we have a charger at our destination, etc. So like it's, let's just say the first 50 rides with an e-bike, you'll be tempted to fully charge it. And that's not a bad thing, because then you just, in the back of your head, you're like, okay, I have a full charge. This will let me go this far. But then after that, you can do exactly what you're doing, Ron, which is not fully charging it. You're actually doing exactly what you need to do because you don't need that full charge. It's not like a gas tank. So yes, when you said that, I was like, oh, wow, good job. Yeah.
Great. Colin, I would think that in your situation where you've got a pretty heavy e-cargo bike with a couple of kids on it, you really wouldn't want that battery to run out probably.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice, but it's also something that's not prominent in our thoughts. I mean, we can generally plan to ride our bike for the day and run our errands and go to the park. And, you know, yesterday I took the girls out to Hyde Park, which is a sort of 12 kilometer each way. We did a detour, another 10 kilometers, so about 30 kilometers with 200 kilograms on the bike, and still had 30% of our charge left. We're not nearly as vigilant with our batteries. I am woefully unaware of all these things. And so, like, for instance, like I know that charging, that bringing the battery in inclement weather, whether it's hot or cold, is a smart thing to do, but it's generally not our number one priority when we get to our destination, as you guys might have surmised. So for us, like, I think that the bike we've chosen is quite forgiving in that regard. We can get away with treating our battery with reckless abandon, and still are seeing no change in our function at 7,000 kilometers on the bike now. So, and I think that just speaks to the sort of the quality of the design. And if there is times where we think, man, we're putting a big load on this, we're planning 50 kilometers with all the kids, then we just grab our charger and bring it along with us and plug it in someplace along the way, and it charges fast. But yeah, we are sort of a set it and forget it type of family. So the battery comes in and it gets plugged in, hopefully. And then in the morning, we just take it off the charger and go put it back in the bike. And we get away with that without too much trouble. So.
Good. Have you ever been out and had the battery?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a time where that's ever happened. I've ridden it without turning it on and felt it, and I go, oh, that's a bit of a haul with all these kids in there. Today the battery wasn't completely engaged when I pulled it out of the driveway, and I definitely knew it because it was not functioning at all. I was like, whoo, this is a load. But yeah, I mean, we've never had a problem with the battery running up.
Great.
There's one thing you're going to touch on, like removable batteries in the winter time that you're not riding your bike.
Do you want to say something about that right now?
Well, I would like to say I was advised, like I wouldn't be riding my bike in the wintertime, so I was advised to not have a fully charged battery over the winter. It's when your battery is laying in your living room or wherever, with the difference of heat and that, you're not putting any extra pressure on a fully charged battery if it's got the flexibility in the battery to shift itself around, then you're not going to have any problems with it. In these days, what you hear of, batteries exploding. So keep it partially empty in the wintertime when storing it.
Hot topic there about e-bikes. But Ben, you look like you wanted to
Yeah, I can
speak
jump
to that.
in there real quick. You mentioned high quality battery. Yes, good. And yeah, what you do is actually correct, because if you're bringing it in to charge it in the winter anyway, or if you're not, anyways, you're bringing it in to charge, that's great. And then you're using it as well. You are correct, Ron, because you can think of batteries, they like what humans like. They don't like too hot. They don't like too cold. They don't like a lot of sleep. So full charge, let's say, as in if you sleep too much, you actually end up losing energy. Same with that. And it stresses the battery out. So yes, if you're going to be bringing it in for longer than a week and not using it, keep it around that 70% mark, and it will maybe drain 10% in a month or two or something. But by the time winter or spring comes and winter ends, your battery will be at 50%, and then you go charge it and you start using it again. But yeah, don't stress the batteries and you're good to go. And you're not, because you're constantly using it. So that's what they also like to do.
Yeah, and something that's been a little bit touched on is in terms of security and locking the bikes. I've been riding an e-bike, and I also have a conventional bike, and there's some of the benefits of the e-bike that have been noted, especially on like a really hot day or when you're going really far. But one that I find is great about the conventional bike is that I have a pretty cheap bike that I feel really comfortable locking downtown and walking away from, and I'm not feeling as secure with the e-bike. But I know there's some different systems for locking with e-bikes, and I'm wondering, do you keep your bikes locked inside, outside, shed? Do you lock it to things downtown? We have bike lockers. How do you deal with security and locking?
I'll go.
Natalia.
It depends on where you're going. So downtown has two bike lockers. One is there's three. Oh, okay, that's news to me. Where's the third one?
I don't know which ones you know.
Oh, okay. There's Peppermint Garden Market, and there is, it's on the corner.
Market, Victoria Park, and Dundas and Wellington. Yeah.
But if you don't have a bike locker, I invest in a really heavy-duty U-lock. The reason why is so that you can take that U-lock and lock the bicycle by the frame to whatever you're going to be locking it to. So, and the reason why you want to lock it to as tight as possible in close to the frame is so that if somebody is going to steal it, they would have to damage some sort of part of the bike, and then it wouldn't be functional at all. So that's kind of like a deterrent. If one of the sides of the U-lock is going through the wheel and through the frame, well, it's going to be really difficult to get that U-lock off because you're going to have to damage some sort of part of the bicycle.
Also, a lot of front wheels are quick release, so to lock the wheel and the frame.
That too. So also investing in pinheads. So there are these special types of locks that are called pinheads, and they're out in BC. Yes.
Edmonton, actually, Alberta. Yeah.
So they're Canadian-based, and they're a special type of lock, which goes through the wheel and goes through your seat post. So both your front wheel and your seat won't ever get stolen because it's a special type of lock that you have to remove, and there's no way that you can pick at it, or is there a way?
I can go into detail on that. So I've actually spoken with the founder of the company, and we have these. They're not inexpensive, but once you buy it, you're good to go. You can change it from one bike to another. It does your seat post, your handlebars, because those are removable, the back wheel, front wheel, and anything else. And there's also a little tag box that you can put a tracker in, and then that has also pinhead locks. So you basically can't get at the box, you can't get at the wheels. So then it makes more sense what Natalia is saying about you take your U-lock, you lock it, and you walk away. And everything else is secure. And just like with how do I put it? It's really important that you make it as easy as possible to do the biking as possible. Because with a car, you get your key, you go in, you drive to your destination, you get out, you lock it and walk in. You want to get as close to that as possible. Otherwise, you may not want to bike. If it's like, oh, I have to take the cable lock, lock the front wheel, take the U-lock and put it against the, like, you'll figure out a system and it takes a few times. But once you get it, we can get to a destination. We put our U-locks in our panniers, so our bike bags that go on the rack. And then you just take it out, you take your key, go this, do that. And like within 10 seconds, we're walking into the store. Like it's really quick, really efficient, and not having to worry about that removable front wheel, which I swear most thefts in London probably is people either not locking their bike or using a cable lock. Please don't do that. Those can be basically cut with scissors, but actually, and using securing a front wheel. And if you don't want to fork out the money for pinheads, just having a bolt, or there's other options that are similar to pinheads, just having a normal nut is more secure than the quick release. And I think a lot of people lose their bikes because of that. Or they lock the front wheel, they get back, the front wheel's there and the bike's gone because the person went, and then take the frame and the rest and get a new wheel for $20 and you're good to go. And then resell that. Make it not resellable is another thing.
Thank you. Ron, you're riding recreationally. You might not have to deal too often with locking your bike, or do you?
The only time I really need to lock my bike is when I go to the bicycle cafe for a coffee and a cookie. And they have a shed, well, it's not really a shed, a covered area out front where you lock your bike. And of course, there's lots of people around, so you don't have to be too concerned about somebody trying to break your lock. But I do have a extra heavy special, I guess it's a chain lock, but it's very secure. I'm told that it'll be very safe. And I could probably use it going somewhere else, like to a grocery store, but in some grocery stores, I don't think are set up for bikes yet, and locks, places to lock your bike up. We'll see.
Good, thanks. And Colin, how about you?
Yeah, I can certainly second the grocery store thing. I end up locking the bike to itself more often than not when I park at a grocery store because of that very reason. The Costco is a good example. I sort of put it in the highest traffic area outside the door and just throw the chain through the back wheel and the frame. But I mean, our setup is that the Arrow comes with a cafe lock, which is really handy if you're just parking in front of a shop to run in for a second, because you can just take the key out and walk away. But we also have like a kryptonite U-lock with a chain that we will use to secure it, normally through the back wheel, through the frame, and then to whatever device. And then finally, if we're leaving it in a sort of a concerning area, we also have an alarm on it that we can activate as well. The only challenge with that being that the kids often get to the bike before we do, so the alarm gets set off more often than we'd like. But the other part is, choosing your Arrow wisely. We have successfully gone to areas of town and left our bike unattended for hours on end that people would routinely advise you not to do. Holly is a bit of a celebrity down on Dundas Street because she's down there so often. She parks in front of the library all the time. And her, the solution we've had to that is that you sort of build a community there, right? There's a lot of folks who are out in front of the library who you might be put off by until you have a chance to chat with them. And Holly will often take people for coffee when she gets there, or let them get to know the kids, and all of a sudden they're sort of like your own family. So she'll come out and someone will say, hey, someone was eyeing up your bike and we told them to shove off, right? And then the next time we show up, that same person will be there with cookies for the girls. And it's an interesting, the thing that's interesting about traveling by bike the way we do is that it tends to build a community everywhere you go. You really can't not have a conversation about it. It's pretty conspicuous. Holly's been in the Free Press twice because of it. And so trying to find ways to secure it just like everyone else advised, but also being aware of your surroundings and building that community of people who are going to support you and help. All those things have helped us along the way.
And sorry, is this Sloan or Torrin?
This one's Sloan.
Sloan.
Yes.
Do you want to say anything about, do you have fun riding on the bike with your family?
You like riding the bike? What do we see on the bike? See what? No, we see birds? Yeah.
Birds?
Yeah.
Nice. Maybe some geese sometimes. Gotta watch
lots
out
of
for
geese,
those.
right? And you guys spotted a heron the other day, right? A big blue heron. Now, Holly was amazed because that's one of the things is that when we're riding, we have constant communication with the girls. We're chatting with them the whole time. And so what ends up happening is we do a ton of teaching. And so the other day, Holly was on her way with just Torn and Sloan on the way to gymnastics, and they identified a great blue heron that she hadn't seen yet, and an eagle. And she's like, it's not an eagle. And then she looks up and it was an eagle. And it's just one of those things that because of the way that you're engaging with the kids throughout the whole trip, it just gives you a lot of time to talk and teach and learn about them. Right? Yeah. Chatty Cathy. Do you talk a
Amazing.
lot? And you guys listen to rock music, right? Yeah. They like DJing with my phone on the ride too. So
Excellent. We're a little past halfway through. I do have some more questions, but I wanted to see if there's any audience questions as well. So if anyone has any questions now, just come in.
My name is Ashok. We have an e-bike, but we don't ride it regularly. For the people using for daily commute or recreation, it becomes second nature, to what you're doing with the bike and everything. But, we use it like a few times a year and, not proper storage of the battery and things. So I think unless you make it into a habit, it becomes a little difficult, especially with the e-bike. I think, there's no like occasional biking, you have to do it. Any kind of tips on that, or?
To make it more of a habit, or?
Yeah, or like how to maintain the bike, if you're using, periodically. Yeah.
And is it a one bike that different members of the family are sharing?
We have the regular bikes, but we have one e-bike. Yeah.
So how to get into the habit of incorporating the e-bike into your life once you have it?
And I think you also mentioned the maintenance bit. The maintenance bit is really just down to that battery, keeping it indoors about half charged if you're not going to be using it all that often, especially if it's like a month at a time. About that. Then it can just sit there right before you go out. You can like plug it in for an hour or so and then go off on your ride. But otherwise, it is a bicycle, so all of the other regular maintenance. And it's not a car, so you don't need oil changes. So otherwise, I don't think, if you're not putting that many miles on the bike, you could probably go 2 years between your maintenance at like the bike shop or something.
I just wanted to speak to the habits part. With any habits, change is hard. It is hard, but starting it in like small steps, let's say taking your bicycle to the grocery store, that could be either a really, really big step for you, depending on how far away your grocery store is, or taking your bike, riding your bike down to, let's say, a few houses down to your neighbor or your friend's place. If you take those small steps, it will start to become a part of your lifestyle. So I would say focus on the small steps rather than the big ones, and yeah, you'll find your way.
I agree.
Thank you. It sort of doesn't relate to one of the other questions that I had, which is you said you all have regular bikes and trying to make that physical and mental switch to using the e-bike. And I'm wondering for the panelists, assuming that most of you have or all of you have ridden conventional bikes prior to having an e-bike, do you notice a difference in how you ride? I notice like in terms of shifting gears is kind of it seems weird with the e-bike because it doesn't function just quite the same way. And, are there places you do or don't ride to that are different? Do you use the bike in a different way? And if so, how?
Sure. So, I mean, I ride my conventional bike to and from work each day. So it depends on which hospital I'm at. I'm about 2 kilometers to UH and 8 kilometers to Vic. But what I find is that when I do ride the bike, it's often if I have errands, if I have children, like the e-bike, I should say, or if I want more range, right? So if I'm going to be carrying a load, or there's going to be a headwind, or I'm going to be working against some sort of weather condition or geographic condition, then I tend to choose the e-bike, because it just means that I don't have to work. If I don't want to show up sweaty, then I might choose the e-bike. Or for instance, night shifts. If I'm finishing at 4:30 in the morning or after a 26-hour shift, then I'm certainly very happy to have the bike available. Although our general rule is that whoever has the kids gets the bike. And it can be a bit of a battle, because Holly uses it to go to the gym. So she likes the gym is about 8 kilometers away, and she likes to get to and from the gym because it's much faster, right? It's over on Oxford Wonderland, and to get from our area of town, you'll win on the bike every single time against people who are trying to travel down Oxford or Riverside to get to the same spot. And so a lot of times that debate will come up is that the bike is very convenient for circumventing traffic. But also we like to try and make sure that the kids are the priority for who gets it. And it's so I mean, for us, really, it's range, weather, geographic conditions, weight. All those things will determine
Tiredness.
To fatigue. Yeah, fatigue is a big one. Whether or not it's just available. That tends to be almost the ultimate decision maker. So.
Anyone else?
I have a funny one, but the reason for e-bike, like looking into getting an e-bike, was not hills. Hills you can plan for. You can be like, okay, I'm going to sweat a lot more on an acoustic bike, they call them now, a normal bicycle. And so I used to commute across town from Masonville area all the way down to StarTech, which is at Oxford and Veterans. So on a regular bike, I showed up, had I had to wipe off, change clothes, all of that. An e-bike would have been great for that. But the headwind is what really gets you. Because you can plan for those hills, you can plan for, all of the other things. And yes, for weather and this and that. But headwind just pops up. And you're like, okay, I'm going to get there in this long. And then the headwind comes and you're like, this is an extra 20 minutes. And you show up and you're dead tired because the headwind was just having your speed the whole time. So that is why I ended up looking into e-bikes, was for that bit. Yeah.
Interesting. Anyone else?
Can you repeat the question again?
It was just, do you find that you ride the bike differently than your old bike?
The only real difference is being able to, so the motor kicks in really quickly when you're first starting to pedal. So it's really easy to start. And I would say it's really motivating to continue cycling. That's the reason why I continue, is because I absolutely just love it. Get to be outside and hear all the birds. Like yesterday, the reason why I was like, oh my gosh, la 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 going along was because there were birds chirping, there were frogs. I could hear the frogs on the TVP. I saw people who were out on the TVP, and I said hello, and it's really fun to pass by houses and just wave, and they wave back to you, and you get that connection, and it's just really fun. So yeah, other than from a normal bike, I would say there's not much difference. It's just a little bit of extra pedal assist, or a little bit of help from the motor to let you go further than you would normally with a regular bicycle, and also helps to not tire you out as much. But you still get tired because you're going further than you normally would. So it's it's just it motivates me more. I don't know. Yeah.
Ron, do you notice a difference?
Well, yes. When you're riding on a street and you've had to stop, and you had a four-way stop, and you're waiting for your turn. When it's your turn, you wish to get going quicker, and certainly the assist from the battery kicks in right away. You get started, and then gives you a quicker getaway. And also, when you are on a grade or going up a quick little rise and you haven't shifted your gears, it kicks in and it really does assist you get up that grade or small rise and easily.
I feel like it feels like someone's pushing you from behind up the hill.
You definitely have somebody there that's helping you along.
Great. Are there any other audience questions? Okay. Yeah, so maybe we'll finish with one last question then. Just in terms of, advice for bikes to buy or to not buy is my one question. The other one is just some special positive experiences that you've had with the e-bike. So if you want to answer either one of those, and then, anybody want to?
I'll go. It depends on what you're using the bike for. There's many different uses. And also depends on what type of lifestyle you have. Are you very active? Are you going from one end of the city to the other? Are you going up hills a lot? Or is your path is the road really straight? So figuring out what you want to use the bike for is really important to figure that out. And then I would say go to London Bicycle Cafe. Andrew, he's really, really nice, and he'll help you figure out which bike is right for you. That's my answer.
Yeah. And then going off of that, so the Bicycle Cafe, I think for the majority of people is where you want to start. However, there are all of the other bicycle shops for recreational cycling, etc., and they offer e-bikes. But there is a huge difference between what we all probably know about, like Canadian Tire $120 mountain bike that will fall apart if you use it for more than a month cumulatively. The components are not great. We did that DIY e-bike. With that, don't know why, probably near-death experience. Don't do that.
That was like a sort of kit. Was it?
Yeah, we got a kit, and then we got a janky bike, and then glued the two together, essentially. Not glued, duct tape. But no, like, they're different uses. You go with the end in mind. Are you a commuter? You probably almost always, except for if you're doing actual mountain biking, want fenders and a rack because you don't want to always wear a backpack, or I try to never wear one. I don't like a sweaty back. And then, do you have a family that you need to haul? Probably don't want to do that on a Canadian Tire mountain bike with a up front and on the back and on the head and handlebars. There, you have 4, right? There.
That's, and that was sort of, you're right. Prior to that, we had, my bike with the seat on the back and the chariot, and that would carry, 3 kids, and then Blakely would ride independently, and Holly would ride on her bike, and we would sort of form this V formation, keep Blakely pinned in along the curb, and we actually got a hit. Someone hit the chariot with the girls in it, and didn't stop. The girls got exposed to maybe my anger management skills on that one, because I threw my bike lock at the guy and then had a very loud argument in the middle of the intersection about the driving behavior. But for us, I mean, having the girls up front makes a big difference. And I spent a fair amount of time looking at it, and I've had a lot of discussions about it since, because a lot of people balk at the price of them. But what I've learned is that the higher quality bikes, regardless of what brand you buy, London Bicycle Cafe is a great place to start. That's where we learned everything. Means that you have a higher quality battery. A certified battery makes a big difference, because they're not going to burn your house down, which is a really nice added on feature. But the problem with the Canadian system right now is that we don't regulate the batteries. And so there are some perfect CSA approved batteries that are the same as the batteries that are in all your power tools and devices, and they don't burn down your house. But you could also import a battery with no sort of regulations that does. And it does burn down your house. We've had fires in the city as a result of them. So it gives e-bikes a bad name because it's an unregulated e-bike. The second one is that the better quality bike tends to use off-the-shelf components, so it's easy to fix. So you can take it to a shop and they'll say, well, this is a Shimano hub and we can get a Shimano hub for you. Whereas if you're using some of the lower quality brands, a lot of times they'll use their own manufactured equipment or components that are harder to source. And so when it breaks, it is very hard to fix and you've sort of had to throw out the bike. And then finally, the build quality is much different when you buy it from a certified bike shop versus, buying it from, say, Costco. A lot of my friends sort of look at Costco, and that's a conversation I have with them is, you got to think about who's building this thing. You're going to be traveling 30 kilometers an hour. It weighs 80 pounds. You weigh whatever you weigh. And if the wheel falls off, that's going to be problematic for you. So those are the types of conversations I have around choosing where you buy your bike and what kind of quality bike you buy. As far as good experiences go, I mean, I think I've touched on a lot of it. We live by the bike now. And so it's engaged us with our community. I always think of the way that we live in our society now is that you have a private space in your home, you have a private space in your car, you have a private space at your destination, and you're really detached from reality. And you see it when you're a vulnerable road user, you see that the people in the cars traveling past you are just completely oblivious. The guy who hit us wasn't malicious in hitting us. He's just oblivious to our existence. It was like we were a cardboard box he was navigating around and he happened to bump it. And instead it was actually two children who were less than a year old inside a chariot. When we're in our bike, it's not like that. You're having conversations at every stop, at every intersection. People are chatting to you. They're talking to the kids. The kids are waving to people as we go by. They go places. The kids have more social engagement because they understand what's going on in the city and they see the human effects of it. They have more natural engagement because we're on the trail all the time. So we're stopping to see if there's any turtles in the river today, if there's any, baby ducks, and they watch the ducklings grow up until they're fully grown and they fly away. It's just the life is more comprehensive when we do it by bike. And the Aero has made it that because we can use it for just about everything we do. And I think that would be the argument that I've got for it.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think off of what's been said here about, a bike that might be a financial savings or seemingly a financial savings in the beginning, like a cheaper bike or a kit, you may find it's a problem later because there's nowhere to service it. So we're doing e-bike test rides outside. We have Trek, MEC, and the London Bicycle Cafe with bikes that can be ridden from their shops. You'd be able to bring those bikes back to those shops. They probably are not going to service a kit bike that someone buys. So someone who has a bike like that is going to have trouble getting it serviced, and that's a safety issue too. The other thing I wanted to say going forward is we haven't said it outright, but I think something that makes e-bikes safer and makes it more likely for all of us to ride them is good infrastructure. So if you have spaces to ride, if you have protected bike lanes, your kids are going to be safe, you're going to be safe, and your bike is going to be more safe as well. So important to note. Yeah, Ben?
Did want to go off of, I was going to mention this, now I'll mention it. So yeah, there really are like 3 types of e-bikes. So there is DIY. You can do that. The cost savings actually aren't that much, to be honest. Then there's the direct consumer bikes. And those, you do have the cost savings up front. And if you are mechanically inclined and want to be nickel and dimed later on with the extra parts that are not standard, then that's fine and you can save. That is what we ended up doing with our second, after the DIY, we kind of went through all of these. We went through the DIY, then we did the direct to consumer, and now if we were to do everything over again, we've learned our lesson.
Go to the London Bicycle Cafe because I hate doing maintenance. I absolutely hate it. I was just like, I always call Ben, can you do it? And he's like, oh, I have my own bike to do. I'm not going to do your bike.
Yeah. Then I end up doing yours and mine. And now I'm like, okay, it's just like a car where not everyone's a car person. Not everyone's a bike person. You shouldn't have to, okay, you can if you want to, work on it on your own. But just bring it to the dealership or, wow, we're just promoting the bicycle cafe, but not sponsored. But yes, a place like that is just, please deal with the thing call them up, hey, this thing's happening. They'll say, come on in at this time. Yeah.
Absolutely. Amazing. I think we have gone over time. So I just wanted to thank everyone. I want to give Ron an opportunity to say one great experience you might have had with your e-bike, if something has come to mind.
Yeah, I had that experience of forgetting my battery. I tried to we made it, ride in from Springbank Park into the cafe again. And thankfully, they loaned me a battery to get back. But my bike is a folding bike because I don't have a hitch on my car. And I wasn't thinking maybe far enough ahead, but the folding bike, I managed, it's heavy, fold it up, pick it up, lay it down in the trunk of the car, and that way I can go to different parts of the city where there's parking, and I can leave my car there, do my ride, come back, fold up, go home again. I'm strictly recreational at this point. I haven't done much or any taking the bike or going on the bike to go shopping. So far, it's recreational.
And that's just fine. You're doing well. Thank you so much, Ron, Natalia, Ben, and Colin. This has been really informative. I hope people found it useful. Thank you to everyone in the audience and to Kaitlin and London Environmental Network for organizing this.